As new wars take over the headlines, some other major stories are not getting the attention they deserve. Israel is starving Palestinians and talking unapologetically about occupying Gaza indefinitely. However, the coverage of the genocide is shrinking. One reason for that? India and Pakistan. The attacks since that atrocity took place in Kashmir have the international media transfixed. And justice in Ghana.
Case number 2.
Through judgments delivered by radio hosts instead of judges. Every breaking news story is competing with other stories for attention, Gaza included. But one would think that images of starving children, a humanitarian catastrophe that grows worse by the day, would be topping news agendas everywhere. That is not the case. Israeli officials, starting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, are now openly discussing the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in Gaza. The Strip is not just under siege, it is being emptied to make way for Israeli settlers. That is a war crime, the cumulative result of decades of far-right rhetoric now being mainstreamed and echoed by Israeli news channels, normalizing genocidal language one soundbite at a time. As for the international media, this is not the moment for Gaza fatigue to set in, although there are some other factors at play here. And too many news outlets have been too easily suppressed, failing to meet their responsibilities, refusing to hold power, be it in Tel Aviv, Washington, or elsewhere, to account. Bezalel Smotrich is Israel's finance minister. He is an ultra-nationalist, among the most influential far-right voices in the Netanyahu coalition government. Almost 60 years into Israel's illegal occupation of the Gaza Strip, Smotrich says it's time to call it what it is. But why stop there? If the time has indeed come for Israelis to say the quiet part out loud, why not just call it a genocide?
Destruction of housing, nearly every hospital destroyed, universities destroyed, schools destroyed, churches destroyed, agricultural fields destroyed, over 55,000 Palestinians killed. That number is actually going to be much closer to 200,000 when we find the people buried under the rubble. The Israelis want to settle Gaza as if they were theirs alone. The only thing they don't want are the Palestinian people there.
One goal Israel's leadership has defined for itself, it calls de-radicalization. And at times, they've said the denazification of Gaza.
We're going to have to get the job done and then denazify Gaza.
But if one listens to the statements coming from Israel's leadership, officials, media, then what one hears is them using the language of those most benighted of times and cruelest of regimes. So if Israel is talking a language of denazifying, then it's legitimate to question, who does that apply to? Who here is acting in a genocidal fashion?
There's an Israeli mayor that put it most blatantly. He said Gaza should be... There should not be a single soul in it, and it should become an Auschwitz museum. You had an Israeli producer with Channel 14 that said recently, Gaza should be holocausted. That was his verbatim quote. He even said they should be put on trains and gas chambers. So now you have the entire Israeli mainstream in favor of genocide, in favor of emptying out Gaza.
Shaping a genocidal mindset in any society takes some work, and the Israeli mainstream media have played no small part in that, the manufacturing of consent. The dehumanization of Palestinians in the Israeli media did not start on October 7th, 2023. It has been taking place for decades across Israeli society.
שכיבוש הרצועה הוא הדבר היחיד שנכון לעשות, ושדם חיילינו לא נשפך כדי שמישהו יאלץ אותו לעשות זאת שוב ושוב ושוב.
One network, Channel 14, is in a category of its own, pumping out messages the Netanyahu government would approve of, taking some of the most dehumanizing and bloodthirsty language out there and amplifying it.
בזה שילדי עזה ירעבו למוות, אנחנו לא רוצים את זה. ולכן אם הילדים של עזה צריכים לרעוב ולחיות בביוב ולשתות מים, so be it.
The Israeli media has been largely rock solid behind military operations, but leading the charge in this is Channel 14. It's uber nationalistic. It is the tool of the far right within Israel, beloved of the Israeli Prime Minister, who gave one of his only interviews since the 7th of October 2023 to Channel 14. This channel is at times the most watched within Israel. And you see there the sort of language that is also mirrored in the political discourse, a lot of genocidal language. We've had Israeli civil society organizations try to take the channel to court in order to stop these sorts of genocidal comments, but with no success as yet.
Channel 14 is playing a lead role in this moment of Israeli society embracing genocidal modes of expression and action. The channel often has panels of experts. They will outcompete each other, who can talk in more extreme ways about Palestinians and dehumanize them. When a state is in the midst of a policy shift from apartheid to genocide, that state needs to carry enough of its public with it on that journey. To do that, certain vehicles of mobilization are required. And Channel 14 has stepped into that breach.
Channel 14, since the beginning of the genocide, it was very clearly the chief insider for genocide in Gaza. The rest of the Israeli media landscape, there's pride in promoting the pictures of suffering, the imageries of total destruction, thousands of people under the baking sun, walking endlessly from one area to another. These all are coming out in Israeli media.
What jumps out about the international coverage is the volume of it. There has been a noticeable drop, which, editorially speaking, is indefensible, given the stage the Gaza story has reached, the cumulative effect of Israel's blocking of food and humanitarian aid to Palestinians, so many of them children, who have gone from hungry to starving. This is not the time for Gaza fatigue, as some analysts have called it, although that is far from the only factor at play.
I don't think the interest in Gaza has slipped away because of any Gaza fatigue, but because of massive political repression, massive retaliation against news media that continue to cover Gaza's atrocities, interference by donors and investors, as we saw recently in 60 Minutes with the resignation of the producer of that show.
Bill resigned Tuesday. It was hard on him and hard on us.
And the BBC, their documentary on Gaza was taken down, and every time there's efforts to cover Gaza, there's all kinds of pressure brought on the BBC. Israel and its supporters aren't just trying to silence the Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank. It's trying to silence everyone in the world.
It's a concerted, deliberate effort to bury it. I would read something in a Hebrew newspaper and send it to contacts at different major newspapers and channels in the US or in Europe and say, just translate this as it is, copy paste it, attribute it to Israel Hayom or Channel 12 or Channel 11, and they never did, refusing to even translate it, refusing to just report on it as it is. I've never seen anything like this. The biggest act of disinformation by omission, where they just don't show you 99% of the things that are happening.
Virtually every mainstream Western media outlet has made the choice not to use local Palestinian journalists in Gaza. By the way, they have access to the West Bank. Again, it's a choice to deprioritize that. The coverage we're seeing from Gaza is a question of what countervailing power one can build against oppression. Now, liking and sharing posts on social media isn't enough. You have to challenge things via the accumulation of power.
Israeli leaders have probably reached a stage where they're beginning not to care. If the President of the United States supports what they do, then the media coverage is not their priority. For sure, they will try to diminish its impact. But if we see not tens of Palestinian children dying of starvation, but hundreds, then the media is going to regain interest and it's going to spark more protests across the world. So they will make sure that it's a slow, grinding process and away from the cameras and away from media coverage, purely to put off any international pressure that may come.
Should justice ever be served in the war crimes cases underway in international courts, certain news outlets may have to hire some lawyers. As was the case with Radio Rwanda in the 1990s and this anti-Semitic paper in the 1940s, Israeli news organizations could be charged with inciting a genocide. And the reputational damage won't stop there.
Some people are, of course, speaking out. Israeli Jews and Jews elsewhere. This is, of course, a generalization, but Jews had a certain moral standing, given the history, for some generations. That may be done. And once Israel has assumed the role of perpetrator, then what does that mean for those who don't stand up, don't speak out, when there is nowhere to hide, and when we are witnessing in real time a society becoming genocidal?
India and Pakistan are going toe-to-toe in a military escalation that has gone further than anything in the past 50 years. Citizens in both countries are struggling to get reliable information, and Meenakshi Ravi has been tracking why.
The explosion of disinformation in India and Pakistan this past week has added confusion and panic to an already tense moment. India, with an exponentially bigger mainstream and social media sphere, has witnessed a tsunami of misreporting, fake news and rumors, most of it domestically produced.
पाकिस्तान का कोई शहर भारत की पहुंच से दूर नहीं है. इस्लामाबाद राजधानी, यहां पर जवाबी हमला किया है निशान.
Indian viewers have been told Pakistan's major cities have been struck by Indian forces. A veteran journalist tweeted an AI-generated photo with news that a military insurrection was underway in Pakistan and a Kashmiri teacher killed on the Indian side in a Pakistani attack was labelled a terrorist by numerous channels. Indian authorities have tried to set the record straight, but it's been hard to keep up. They've also been trying to keep a grip on the narrative. More than 8,000 accounts on X have been blocked in the country, and as of this recording, alternative news sites have been made inaccessible. One topic currently out of bounds for Indian journalists has been the matter of how many Indian fighter aircraft were shot down by Pakistani forces during the first wave of India's operation. International media have been all over the story.
CNN can only confirm one Rafale jet came down 40 miles inside Indian-controlled Kashmir.
In the Pakistani information space, fake news and rumors have proliferated as well, primarily on social media. TV channels have stuck to a jingoistic and military-approved set of talking points with no discussion about state-backed militant activity within India. The government and military have also been churning out videos to whip up nationalist support. This song has been playing on repeat on Pakistani outlets. Then there was this video released by the Pakistani Ministry of Information showcasing the government's efforts to fight the information war. X, which has been blocked in Pakistan for a year now, has suddenly been opened up, and Pakistani trolls impersonating Indian military personnel have been posting all kinds of fake news. With both countries facing their most intense conflict in decades, the spiral of mis and disinformation has everyone on edge.
Thanks, Meena. If you find yourself dealing with something personal and painful, a broken marriage, a family dispute, you might turn to a friend. For something as serious as a case of sexual assault, the police would be brought in, a lawyer, or the courts. However, in Ghana, more and more people are turning somewhere else, to live radio. So-called justice-style programs promise swift public resolutions. All you have to do is show up on the day and be ready to divulge. No lawyers, no script, just you, the host, and an audience tuning in. These programs handle everything from petty personal disputes to rape allegations. And those administering the justice, the hosts, are known for their blunt, sometimes aggressive responses as they deliver moral verdicts on the spot. The shows are wildly popular, but they're also being criticized for turning private pain into primetime theater. The Listening Post's Tarek Nafa now on the reality courtroom talk shows where Ghanaians are going to seek justice.
Across Ghana, people are seeking out a different kind of justice, not in a courtroom, but on reality shows broadcast live on the radio and YouTube. The hosts of these shows play judge and jury as they adjudicate cases live on air.
Case number 2.
The justice on offer is loud, emotional, and often theatrical. But behind the spectacle are stories of real pain. Courtroom talk shows have been around for a while in Ghana, but recently their popularity has exploded. One of the fastest rising stars is the host of the Sompa Nkomo show, Oheneni Adazoa. Just 2 years in, her show already has millions of views.
Sompa Nkomo is a social program. We deal with family issues, marital issues, and issues that involve vulnerable people, such as divorcees and widows. We sit and discuss issues like they do in a court to find solutions. I see this as a way to help society.
The issues that are brought there are day-to-day issues that people encounter. There is a lot of entertainment element where they will be ringing bells, they will be playing some songs. People like the unusualness, people like the entertainment element, people like the sensationalism, and that is what is making it more attractive.
There's a lot of things that mimic the regular courts, from the way that there's an accused, there's a defendant, there are witnesses, there's hundreds of thousands of people who are tuning into these shows every single day. It's lighthearted, it's funny, even with very serious issues, and that's what sort of makes it compelling.
For many who go on these shows, there's a desire to be seen and heard, but also the promise of some kind of action. Ghana's justice system is out of reach for many citizens. Legal fees are unaffordable. Court cases can drag on for years. A survey in 2024 found that 97% of Ghanaians believe judges and magistrates are corrupt. As flawed as they can be, these shows offer something the courts often don't: visibility, speed, and resolution. Those who win their case can receive small but meaningful relief: food, clothing, or a modest amount of cash. And sometimes the hosts help their guests crowdfund support from the audience.
Increasingly, people are losing tracks in our institutions that are supposed to provide justice. And therefore, when they have a platform where they see something that ought to be taking place in court, playing out right in front of them, in a more informal manner, in a way that they can relate to, in a language that they can relate to, certainly it would make it more attractive, because justice is not just about you delivering justice. It should be seen to be done. They are serving a certain sector of our country that is shut out of the formal judicial system.
Most of the people who show up on the show mention that they've been to these places, they've been to legal aid, and they haven't received anything.
Police station. Court.
Whereas if you went on a show and you have a compelling story, the audience are in your favor, you get your justice today. Even the first day you show up, you're not going to go empty-handed. The host is going to make sure that you receive a bit of something.
What chairman Toma me no a program the oba so amount Toma. What mammy sikata to say my lord say. What time mammy see from Kodidi?
That's something for someone who just needs to be comforted.
There's a perception, say justice delay, justice deny.
When people come to us, they get the result they were looking for. For instance, the majority of people that come to us have issues about men who don't look after their children. We call the man to speak to him, and if after that he begins to look after the child, has that not brought peace?
Ghana's media space exploded after it was privatized in the 1990s. From a handful of state-owned broadcasters, the country's population of 35 million now has more than 500 radio stations and 175 TV channels. Regulating so many outlets has proven a challenge. Courtroom-style shows frequently cross ethical and legal lines. One episode of Sampan Como revealed the identity of a young woman who was allegedly raped, a clear violation of Ghana's criminal code. We've chosen to blur her face, though the original broadcast did not. George Sarpong is the executive secretary of Ghana's main media regulator. We asked him what he was doing to address concerns about this kind of exploitative content.
Considerable part of the content of these courtroom shows violate the established standards. We are aware that not many of them are trained presenters. There are still concerns about vulgarity, obscenity, and particularly the treatment of minors. The law does not have provisions on what graduated sanctions should be available to the Commission in seeking to enforce the standards. So when you see these things happen within the media, you are able to advise, you are able to denounce, but when it comes to enforcement, there's a lacuna in the law.
There have been instances where you listen to some of the parties that come on, and you could clearly see that those parties need help. And then the language, the choice of words they use in describing these matters is so insensitive.
No, the when you feelings feeling.
It's about sexual assault. It's about rape. These are criminal matters that cannot be resolved on such a show.
Yes, people tell me all the time, "Oh, Heneni, you shouldn't have said this. It was too explicit. You should have been more sensitive." Sometimes I take the advice, and other times I disregard it. This is my style. It contributes to making the show more lively, and people enjoy it. In this profession, no one's perfect. People will always have something to say about whatever you do.
Ghana's media regulator says it relies on public complaints to monitor content on social issues, and few viewers have taken issue with the inflammatory style of courtroom shows. On social media, the hosts are praised for doing what the justice system has not: listening, acting, and getting results. And that's exactly how the presenters of these shows describe it too, that they are delivering a public service.
Sometimes, people come to my office and cry so profusely while telling me their stories that I wonder how they'll be able to speak on air. So I crack jokes and they start laughing, and then you'll see that they begin to open up and tell their entire story. We speak with people, sometimes we help them find jobs, and with every little action, we're able to help.
When I talk to people about the problems in the media, the things that worry them that they think we need to address is political content, polarization, and stuff like that. These programs, they think it's excellent drama, they're enjoying listening to them.
Every radio station is mimicking these shows. It's such a big thing, and so many people support it. So many people are grateful for what it brings. We might sit here and say that there's a professionalism issue, but there's a bigger issue with like the audience they garner, and it tells you that there's a place for them in the system.
And finally, throughout Israel's war on Gaza, we have seen the impact of mobile phones and their cameras, live streaming a genocide in real time. But phones can also take us back in time through the pictures that we store on them, like the one that this 12-year-old Palestinian girl named Rahaf is looking at. It is an image of what she looked like prior to October 7th, 2023. Rahaf, her image, her story went viral. just not viral enough to change things. In the countries that continue to defend the indefensible in Gaza, and the news organizations that have shamed themselves by making excuses for a genocide, or just looking the other way, hoping that no one notices that they have sold out so many Palestinians, including children.